Hello and welcome back to the City Report podcast on YouTube. Before we get into today's video, please make sure you hit the like button, you subscribe into the channel, and you let me know in the comments which player you would most like City to sign during the transfer window. Joining me today is a man with over 60,000 followers on TikTok. We are very much in esteemed company. David, how's your summer been? How are you? And are you ready to kick it all off again?
Yeah, I mean the summer's been fantastic. Still dining out on the treble win. I've not been back on the podcast since the three trophies. So yeah, I'm still taking it all in. Summer's been nice, albeit I'm sure it's been mentioned a few times already. The weather's been rubbish in England, but yeah, I'm ready for the season now. I think it kicked in about a week ago. I was like, I think I'm ready again now. I'm ready for football on a Saturday night. I'm just like, what do you talk about? There's nothing on TV. I'm ready for City to come back again. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I know the feeling. It's been. I think I'm slowly getting there, seeing the preseason friendlies, and I'm not really one for preseason friendlies usually. But seeing them get played out, obviously, City have had a couple, and it's just about getting me there. But we'll for the first part of today's show, we'll do a little bit of a news roundup before we get into something a little bit more exciting in the second part. But as I'm probably sure most of you are aware, spoiler alert, there hasn't been that much news. We'll start with Kyle Walker though, because his situation seems to be lingering in the air just enough to get something squeezed out of it to speak about, albeit, like I said, not so much. The latest update from Jack Gorn of the Daily Mail is saying that Bayern Munich is still pushing ahead, looking to sign Kyle Walker. City want to keep Kyle Walker. It's been a little bit throughout the summer. Maybe not sure where City stood. There was some reports of a contract extension. There was some reports that they were happy to let him go. It appears now that City are wanting to keep Kyle Walker, albeit they would, as usual with all the players, not stand in his way if he did want to leave. David, this has caused a little bit of a divide, I have to say, of people sort of saying, okay, Kyle Walker, your time has come. You were fantastic for us, but clearly, you're not up to the scratch that is maybe needed for a 30, 40, 50 game season, and others saying that no, he's a great option to have off the bench. Just look at the way he handled Vinicius Junior, for example, or in the other matches towards the back end of the campaign. Where do you fall in that spectrum, if at all? Do you have any opinions on Kyle Walker?
I mean, I've sat back and listened to all the debates we've had on the podcast and stuff, and I think the back end of last season, I was saying let's keep him. I think if you wanted a traditional fullback, there's still probably not that many better than him. But I think over the summer, and I think Adam said it so many times, there is just no room for him in the starting 11 and the system that Pep's playing. Don't think Pep's going to suddenly change his system again. And I think without knowing the exact stats, he did start picking up that ankle. Just seemed to keep getting worse and worse, didn't it? Over the last, whether it's 12 months or two seasons, he seemed to be out 2 or 3 times a year, and he's the wrong side of 30. Sorry. So if Bayern Munich really want him, he's thinking about a new challenge. I think it would be the right thing for him to move on now. I don't think he'd be in our starting 11. I probably don't think he'd be even in our sort of rotated second back four either. I think he's way down the pecking list now. So if he wants to leave, it's a fantastic opportunity to go to Bayern Munich as well. I mean, it's a big club, so I wouldn't begrudge him leaving.
It's interesting because there's been in that Jack Gorn piece there was a line about how the City players apparently are pushing for him to stay. So he's obviously revered and he's obviously loved within the dressing room, and you can see why. We see his characteristics and we know his personality, even the sketchy stuff behind closed doors that are leaked every now and again. But do you think there's potentially a fear with Ilkay Gundogan having gone already, Riyad Mahrez having pretty much gone already, one or two other players in that core group who may be moved on as well before the end of the window? Is the only sort of, for me, I think if he wanted to go, then it's a great time to leave. You're never going to get a better chance to do a refresh. But at the same time, is there a fear that perhaps he's one too many in terms of that core leadership group? I suppose it depends what City want to do next season, but assuming, like we know Pep, they want to go after more trophies, do a back-to-back treble or even the quadruple, is he vital to that? Or is it better to get him gone if he is going to be wanting to play 30, 40 matches of the campaign, which I think everyone, even Kyle Walker perhaps, would admit he isn't up to scratch anymore to do?
Yeah, I think in terms of that sort of like leadership group and the experience he's got, it would be a loss, especially with Gundogan going. Mahrez, who seems to be quite a well thought after person, speaks very well as well on interviews. That if we were to lose all three, maybe even Bernardo as well, who knows what's going on there. But if we lost 3 to 4 of them, I think it would be a bit of a problem. But like I said, I think in terms of his personality, it always came across like he was like a well-liked person in the changing room. He brought a bit of like fun and energy there. But I think Erling Haaland and Jack Grealish are probably enough in that squad now to make sure that everyone's having a good time and that the energy is always lifted. I think I've said it a few times on the podcast before that Haaland's energy, it's unbelievable. I think Carl Walker's sort of looks a little bit like a joker in the changing room, but I don't think it'd be missed that much without being in there and knowing the ins and outs of exactly who is the sort of the joker of the pack. I think Jack Grealish and Erling Haaland will probably fill that void well enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like we're in a transition stage in terms of the dressing room where you look back even from 3 years ago, 4 years ago at a squad photo, and there's not really that many players left. Obviously, Edison, John Stones is another one who can really step up, but Kevin De Bruyne, apart from that, we're looking at a brand new team. And with City, I almost feel like it happens sort of blink and you miss it with City's transitions. There isn't a bit like Liverpool where they're having 7 players leave at once at the end of the season like we saw last year. There is sort of just gradually 1 or 2 here go, 1 or 2 are replaced, and that's credit to the way City operate. In terms of another name then that we should mention, Nathan Ake, he's not going anywhere, and it looks like his stay in East Manchester, or at least at Manchester City, is going to extend even further. He's about to be awarded a new contract. His current deal was set to run out in 2025, which is 2 summers away. That will then go beyond it, and he's going to move up into that sort of middle bracket of around 190k, 150k per week, which I think nobody can really begrudge him of that, can they, in terms of his performances?
Not after last season, not at all. He was absolutely fantastic. I think, again, he's another person that so many people talk so highly of, and he's probably in the bracket of being a potential leadership group captain, vice captain in that group for this season. I remember watching him, I think it was 2 seasons ago, the Charity Shield, and I think he gave a penalty away, or I can't remember the exact what happened, but I just looked at my dad and was like, is he going to be one of those defenders like Mangala that just all the little 50-50s always seem to go against him? He looks a little bit erratic with his defending, but this season, well, I'll say this season, last season, he was phenomenal. You could count on him for anything, couldn't you? You put him in that position on the left-hand side or left back or stepping on outside Jack Grealish at times and scoring a few goals. He was brilliant and thoroughly deserves the contract extension, in my opinion.
Be honest with me. Did you think he would be this important when he signed? Because obviously he joined from Bournemouth, who had just been relegated. I think the record still stands along with James Maddison. He was £40 million, which was the most a team had ever paid for a player in the Championship. Obviously came through at Chelsea. He was an established Premier League defender, but I personally never thought would be going into a Champions League final begging for Nathan Ake to be fit. But credit to him, because I think it was Atletico Madrid last year. Adam and I spoke about it at the time, and we said, obviously due to injury, but we said Nathan Ake did a fantastic job at left back. Even then, probably didn't see it as a permanent home for him. But I'm delighted for him. I know there's been a few documentaries, and I remember a scene in one of them where he was in his home and obviously playing the piano, and there was that touching scene. I think it was his dad passed away, and you can't being a nice guy in football doesn't mean to say that you should be rewarded with a big contract and be at the best club in the world. But it is nice at the same time when your team is winning the treble and the people who are on the pitch pulling on the shirt are genuinely, or at least they appear genuinely nice guys as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he comes across like a nice guy, and also someone who's, Pep loves saying it all the time, but someone who's ready to learn. He wants to listen, wants to get better, and it was evident like this season. He learned so much. He got so much better across all of his attributes. He was just developing every single week. You were like, my God, he's getting better. Heading's getting better. He was scoring goals, his passing, his distribution. And yeah, I think, fantastic. Those documentaries sort of showed him in a really nice light as well. I remember the one playing the piano and in his, I think, an apartment with his partner or wife as well. He seems like a nice guy to have around the changing room, which you want. You don't want these angry, annoying players that are causing problems. Like we've got a couple of them, or maybe just one now. That you want Pep would probably be happy with 10 Nathan Ake's in the squad in terms of a personality. He talks that highly of him.
Who's the annoying one? Is he Portuguese by any chance?
He's very tanned and he's Portuguese, yeah.
Speaking of which, would you keep him this season? Because I know, obviously, on the back of the Yokohama friendly, he put on a decent show in, and that isn't the be all and end all. But he looked happy enough. If he's in the fold, come Burnley first game of the season, are you going to be one of those kicking up a fuss, or is it a case of if Pep Guardiola says he's good enough, then he's in the team and he stays?
I think whatever Pep decides, I would back it. I think Pep will know whether he's come back into the squad and apologise for whatever happened or has got the right sort of attitude a little bit better than when he left. But if he stayed, he's certainly got a skill set that would be good for us this season, being able to play on both sides in midfield. But I don't think we should also just give him away for free. I don't think we should be just sticking him out on loan to anyone and paying his wage. He could serve a role at the club this season. I wouldn't be buzzing at the moment. I think we'd be better off without him, but I certainly don't think we should just stick him in the reserves or give him away to Tottenham and pay his wages.
God, I can imagine him fitting in at Tottenham very well. It's a catastrophic club at the best of times. But I think I don't know Cancelo's personality, and we only get a glimpse into it. And obviously, when was it? Have been January of this year, last season. There was clearly fractures, and there was clearly stuff that needed to be resolved. But he probably wasn't the only one causing a fuss. I think there's been plenty of reports of journalists coming out and saying, there was 3 or 4 players. He maybe would have been the ringleader of those that were discontent. But I can imagine if you sat at home watching your teammates win the treble, and obviously he's won a Premier League before, fair enough. He's not won an FA Cup before. No, he arrived after 2019, but granted, it's not the most prestigious competition in the world. But to see your teammates of that season lifting the Champions League, the trophy he spoke about so openly, about being the one that he wants in his career, and then having had City beat you in the way to doing that, I can imagine that probably humbles you a little bit, and it's difficult to turn up to pre-season and still have a face on, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if I was in his position as well, I'm a left back, I'm a right back, and throughout last season, you saw players like Nathan Ake playing left back, Bernardo Silva playing left back, Akanji playing right back, John Stones. You would get a little bit annoyed, being like, "Well, hold on a second, I can play in both positions, and I'm getting other players, multiple players, getting picked ahead of me." It would be tough to keep your sort of attitude at 100%. Not everyone's got that knuckle down, Gundogan, do your work, get back in the team, and do well. He obviously was one of those players that sort of saw his backside a little bit and then couldn't pull it back round. And I think even for Portugal, you saw him on the bench in the World Cup. There's obviously problems in his work ethic or something that just doesn't quite sit well with a lot of managers. It's not just Pep Guardiola that's got a problem with him. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. If he stays, I'll take it. I won't be booing him. But if he leaves, I'm not going to be sad about it.
Finally, then, before we move on to part 2, just a little bit of transfer news that wasn't covered on the first show of the week. Fabrizio Romano saying that City have Michael Olise along with 2 other potential right wingers to replace Riyad Mahrez. Firstly, do you think it's necessary that City add another body into there? Obviously, we saw Oscar Bob did so well in that friendly against Yokohama. Cole Palmer came on. He played well. He's fresh off the back of winning the Under-21 European Championships with England. But it feels a little bit young and a little bit inexperienced, and we're heading into what could be a historic campaign for City. No team has ever won 4 Premier League titles in a row. Do you think those 2 names are the sort of players you need at right wing, or someone like Olise? He's played 50-odd games in the Premier League, I think it is, for Palace. Granted, he's not the highest scorer, but he's clearly a talent. Does it need somebody like that to come in and really rejuvenate that side of the attack?
I personally think we do, yeah. I think the players you spoke about there, Cole Palmer's, Phil Foden's, Bernardo Silva's, they're players that probably would be best suited playing in the central positions. Palmer especially, who had injury problems last year. I think we do need someone like your Jack Grealish that you go, that is a right winger. Everyone else will rotate in and around that player. Jack Grealish at the moment is probably a little bit light on the left-hand side. Who rotates in and out with him? I would probably like to see Olise come in. I think the price bracket's a good one. It's a City transfer, isn't it? It's a 21-year-old French international. It's a £35 million signing rather than £100 million. It sort of makes sense, I think. Upgrading or downgrading, however you want to see it, with Mahrez. 21-year-old, isn't he? I think. Yeah, 21.
Yeah, he's in that. Yeah, he's in the age. Yeah.
Mahrez was 33, 34, was it? Like it all makes sense, I think, for City to do the transfer and get it over the line. But then I've recently read yesterday that Chelsea have put in a bid, or is this fake Twitter news? I don't know.
Who haven't Chelsea put a bid in for? That's the real question, is it? I know, and I think if you're looking at Chelsea's squad, do they really need another right-sided attacker? Do they really need another attacker? Do they really need any more players? Probably not. But it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what City do with that transfer, because, like you say, release clause, if that's to be believed as well, it does sort of scream what City usually go after in the market. So yeah, certainly one to watch. That's it for today's video then. Make sure you hit a like and you subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to let me know in the comments which player you would most like City to sign during the transfer window. Until next time, we'll see you later.